When we talk about Saudi Arabia, we talk about oil, the resource that transformed this once remote and barren land into a powerful oil giant. Their oil reserves rank among the largest in the world, estimated at 267 billion barrels. This places Saudi Arabia as the world's number 2, just after Venezuela, when considering reserves alone. Imagine, Saudi Arabia pumps 10 million barrels of oil daily into the market. Steady like that, whenever the world needs it, they have it, growing wealth steadily. Since the 1930s, when the giant Ghawar oil field, the world's largest, was discovered, Saudi Arabia underwent a total transformation. Their economy roared ahead like a Formula One engine, powered by this black gold. Currently, oil contributes up to 42% of GDP and 87% of the national budget revenue. Thanks to oil, Saudi Arabia has built mega-cities like Riyadh and Jeddah, with towering skyscrapers and ambitious mega-projects such as Neom, a futuristic city in the desert, projected to cost up to $500 billion to complete. And also from oil, Saudi Arabia can invite the most famous celebrities to its country for events, like in the case of Cristiano Ronaldo. Every time oil prices rise, their national budget swells accordingly. Huge sums from oil help them maintain a high standard of living for citizens, invest in education, healthcare, and even provide subsidies so people can live, think comfortably without worrying too much about jobs. But before oil was discovered, Saudi Arabia was not as magnificently wealthy as it is now. Back then, it was just a dry land, scorching sun, vast deserts everywhere. People mainly lived by herding camels, goats, and sheep, like the nomadic shepherds you see in movies. They also farmed a little, but with such harsh climate, agriculture could hardly develop. Before oil appeared, Saudi Arabia's economy had nothing but some trade activities along the route from east to west. Perhaps the most special part was earning a little from pilgrims visiting Mecca and Medina, the two biggest holy sites for Muslims. Every year, millions came spending money on souvenirs and other services, but the income from that was negligible. Poverty still surrounded them. At that time, trade was the main livelihood, with tribes moving back and forth exchanging goods. The harsh weather and scarce water meant life mainly depended on trade to get by each day. A Saudi daily life back then was simple, wandering on camelbacks, searching for patches of water and grass to graze their livestock. They ate very simply: goat meat, milk, sandwiches, and on good days, some fruit. Life revolved around herding and small-scale trading, and yet it survived through centuries. At that time, the tribe was everything. Each tribe self-managed its own land, and often when they disliked each other, it sparked fierce conflicts over water sources or grazing fields. Then one day, King Abdullah al-Saud, the ancestor of the current al-Saud dynasty, was the one who settled all conflicts. So, to eat Greenland shark meat, special processing is needed. This isn't a fancy chef's creation. It dates back hundreds of years to when Viking settlers first arrived in Iceland around the 9th century. Icelanders fished in the freezing sea. Sometimes they pulled up huge Greenland sharks, but the problem was the meat was inedible. From then on, the country transformed completely. In just a few decades, from a poor place where people lived off camels and sparse water, Saudi Arabia rose to become an oil powerhouse, making the world see it in a new light. It's hard to imagine that only a century ago, this place was still poor, struggling with heat and camels. Whereas now, black gold has turned the entire nation into a giant on the global map. Speaking of extraction, Saudi Arabia pulls no punches. Every day they pump 10 million barrels of oil, keeping their economic engine running smoothly. Imagine if you lined up all the oil Saudi extracts in a single day in containers. It would stretch over 700 kilometers. They do this not only for immediate profits, but also to maintain control over the global oil market. Whenever another country starts to ramp up production, Saudi Arabia steps on the gas, increasing output to push prices down, making it difficult for competitors. And the question is, when will Saudi Arabia run out of oil, and where will the country go then? Looking at the figure of 267 billion barrels of oil left underground, many think it's endless. But if we keep calculating at the current pumping rate of about 10 million barrels per day, the quantity of oil in this country will only last about 70 to 80 more years. That is, if everything remains unchanged. However, there is an interesting fact. Saudi Arabia is beginning to realize that it cannot live forever relying solely on oil. A program called Vision was outlined by Prince Mohammed bin Salman with the goal of diversifying the economy, developing other sectors like tourism, technology, and renewable energy. It can also spread by direct contact with nasal or throat secretions from the sick person or by touching contaminated personal items like handkerchiefs or utensils. The bacteria can also enter through open wounds or cuts on the skin. In short, diphtheria bacteria spread easily from sick people to healthy ones. Instead of just relying on pilgrims coming to Mecca, they want to make Saudi Arabia an international tourist destination like Dubai. Another goal is social change. The clearest example is that Saudi women can now drive and work more, no longer restricted as before. They want to empower women more and help society develop in a more modern way. Sharia law covers all life aspects like marriage, economy, and punishments for crimes. Muslim countries apply Sharia to varying degrees from Saudi Arabia enforcing it very strictly to countries like Turkey applying it selectively. Sharia includes punishments categorized as follows. Hudud are penalties for serious offenses like theft, adultery, drinking alcohol, and rebellion. Is more than the annual GDP of Vietnam. This place will be designed with the most advanced technology and is expected to attract many businesses, creating millions of jobs for the population. However, the vision is not easy to achieve. One big issue Saudi Arabia is facing is that oil still dominates too much. If the victim's family agrees, the offender may pay money instead of facing punishment. Tazir refers to discretionary punishments decided by judges based on the severity of the offense and circumstances. Tazir punishments can include fines, community service, or lighter penalties. Each country applies Sharia law differently. Vision 2030 is a large-scale and ambitious plan. If successful, Saudi Arabia will no longer depend on oil and will become a modern, developed nation in many different sectors. But to achieve that, they need to overcome many major challenges, from social change to economic stability. In summary, this is like a big dream of Saudi Arabia, where they are recognized not only for oil, but also for modernity and wealth from many other industries. But the road to get there will surely be full of thorns, requiring time and great effort. 70 years from now, in the year 2000, when big oil fields like Ghawar start running dry, what will become of Saudi Arabia? Perhaps by then, this nation will have become one of the renewable energy hubs with vast solar farms instead of oil rigs. But without strategic moves, they could face a future without oil, and then the oil dream might be just a legend. Regardless, Saudi Arabia is still thriving thanks to oil, and running out of oil is a distant future. But who knows, maybe in 50 to 60 years the world will switch to clean energy, and oil will become something that by then, Saudi Arabia no longer holds the advantage in, and they will face a real revolution. Thank you for your interest in this story. If you find it interesting, you can click subscribe, turn on notifications, and share. And now, I say goodbye.